Right before the sun came up this morning, I came to the conclusion that for the third time this week, the deer have opened the yard hydrant and drained the water tanks. About the time I concluded that I needed to come up with some sort of a lock for the yard hydrants, the water tanks got emptied out for the last time. So I ran to town and I picked up a few parts, and this is what I came up with, but I can tell you right now, I've already removed 2 links from this chain, making it a little bit tighter. The deer are curious by nature, and they use their mouths and their faces to groom each other, and for some reason they have found enjoyment in playing around with the yard hydrant. After removing 2 more links from this chain, the new lock keeps the handle closed enough that even if the deer do play around with it, the water won't leak out. Now it's time to get the water tanks filled back up, and the days are a little bit too short to wait for the sun to do it, so I can run the backup generator for about 24 hours straight, and both 2,500 gallon tanks will be filled back up again. I managed to get our water issue resolved while Cedar and the kids slept right through it, which is exactly what I prefer to do with most problems we have around here. Thank you to Harry's for sponsoring today's video. Sometimes when I'm shopping, it is much easier to make decisions when I can see the products right in front of me.
And now, whatever store you're in, Harry's will be there.
We went to our local Costco and picked up the Harry's Chrome Edition Winston Shave Set, which contains the Winston handle that GQ called the best men's razor overall for 2023.
It has a smooth zinc body with rubberized grip and their signature 5-blade razor cartridge. It comes with 13 5-blade cartridges and 1 travel blade cover.
We've been using Harry's products for the last 5 years, and we've never had a bad shave with any of their razors, but what I noticed with the new Harry's Chrome Edition razor was how comfortable the handle was, and again, I got about as close of a shave as you could ask for. The Harry's Chrome Edition is currently $8 off until the end of January, so act fast to get in on this awesome deal. So make sure you check out Harry's next time you go to your local Costco and let us know what you pick up.
Thanks again, Harry's.
Well, since the last time I saw you, we've gotten over 2 feet of snow up here, but the blizzard blew out, and now it's bone chilling cold. But even on a day like today, the deer still need to be fed and watered. Throughout the week, I tried to break it up into bite-sized pieces, and I ran the snowblower and the snowplow multiple times just to stay on top of things. But this is the aftermath after the final snow. And like I said, collectively, we easily got a couple of feet. After the storm blew out last night, the temperatures dropped down to at least 5 below, maybe even 10 below, and none of our equipment ever gets plugged in. With all the diesels that we have, we don't use the block heaters on any of them because this time of year it's a little bit too much for our batteries and our solar panels. But no matter how cold it gets, the skid steer always seems to start. When this particular storm set in, the temperatures were very cold from the jump. And when it snows when it's very cold, the snow has a tendency to be very powdery and it won't compact very well. And this is good for the snowblower, but it's not fun to drive on. And by the way, we didn't have any snow days, which means Callie and Reed had to get down to the bus stop regardless of how much snow was on the ground. Which means again, Dad's got some work to do. Happy birthday, Shy Shy.
Thank you.
This is what Mom sends the kids home with after Sunday dinner.
Believe it or not, this is a small amount too. This is adorable. Anything else?
Happy birthday!
Yeah, you want me to take
Thank
anything
you.
else?
Huh?
You want me to take anything else? Like,
What else do you need?
I don't know.
Rhett does his grocery shopping when he comes over on Sunday.
This is dinner for the whole week for us. So
Toilet
thanks.
paper and paper towels at least for a few months.
In between everything else that's going on, I'm still trying to find time to work on the Bumpside diesel. And one of the things that's kind of been holding me up is the core support, radiator mounts, and how I'm going to configure it on the 1990 frame. The core support that came with my truck, one of the mounts was completely rusted out. And while the local junkyard only wanted $25 for a much better core support, the temperatures outside were almost bad enough that I nearly gave up and went home a couple of times. And again, in the middle of everything else that's going on, it's my job to keep the firewood split. And I let the firewood pile get a little bit low. Typically, Cedar and the kids handle all the stacking of the split firewood, but at some point I allowed the split firewood to get used up, and now as cold as it's getting, I'm overdue to get the split firewood stacked up by the back of the house. But when it gets down to be 15 or even 20 below zero, having a wood stove that we can depend on has never been more important. And using that wood stove, I can keep the house between 67 and 72 degrees with minimal effort. And this wood stove that I have used for the last 4 years to keep the house warm and to keep the family warm is only 2 years newer than I am. The snow is now getting too deep to walk across the front pasture to get a bale of hay for the deer. This is another one of these projects I've been telling myself you should move the hay to a place that's much easier to feed from before the snow gets too deep. Now I get to move 40 bales of hay with a fresh 2 feet of snow on the ground. When the snow melts in the springtime, it's going to be very interesting to watch from my perspective. Moving the snow around with a snowblower, I'm pretty sure it's going to help places like this over here dry out quite a bit faster. Because I haven't put a whole lot of gravel down over here yet, this can be a little bit wet and muddy in the springtime, and my hope is that using the snowblower, it'll help it dry out just that much faster. By the way, this is what happens when you hit a stick with your snowblower. So it turns out the replacement core support from the junkyard has some rust in it too. But the mounts are there, so I should be able to figure out how I'm going to tie this into the frame. Rather than cutting the frame horns on the 1990 frame, I opted to notch the bottom of the core support, and after taking about 3/8 of an inch out of both sides, the core support and the fenders and the body lines are all where they're supposed to be. With a little bit of modification, I was able to make the old 1990 mounts work. Because I use the factory 1990 radiator mounts, now all of the new neoprene cab mounts work the way they're supposed to work. And they're all from the same year truck. So getting the radiator support, the crossmember support figured out means I can now take everything apart, do the rust repair on the cab for the final time, get the cab put back on, get the bed put back on. Yeah, this was one of the last things that was kind of holding me up. I think tomorrow I'm going to set the hood on it, make sure it lines up good and looks okay, but it's ready to get blown apart. I can finish all the welding underneath the cab and treat it with the POR 15 and do all the stuff that I'm going to do for the final time and start making progress towards getting this thing back on the road. So again, it's turning into a really cool truck. I hope the truck runs down the road as good as it looks sitting still. So. I haven't used the plow truck at all to plow so far this year, but with the flatbed and the tire chains, the truck is the perfect candidate for hauling some hay. When I stacked the 100 bales of 2-string alfalfa that I would later end up using to feed the deer, my thoughts were that it would be easier to feed from this side versus the other side. But with the last snowstorm that came in, the one thing that we got that we don't get very often was some really deep snow drifts. The wind was bad, and now it's too physically hard to try and make it through the snow drifts with a bale of hay. So I need to move what's left of the hay closer to the house, so it's easier to feed as the snow gets deeper. The deer are picky eaters, at least when it comes to hay. They do not like the grass hay that I've given them a couple times, and they love the leaves off the alfalfa. But because I feed the deer only every 2 days, by the end of the second day there's a lot of alfalfa stems left behind, and the deer are getting hungry. I'm hoping to find some younger alfalfa in the future, and hopefully this will keep the waste to a minimum. This is how I avoid losing a few bales of alfalfa while going up our driveway. Before I stack another 40 bales of alfalfa right here for the deer, I want to clean up all the deep snow and the drifts that have accumulated since the snowstorm. When the snow gets this deep, the chickens don't go anywhere, and naturally our egg production drops off dramatically. So after cleaning up the snow with the snowblowers, now the chickens can go where they want to. While I was moving the snow for the chickens, the entire back roof slid off, and now I've got a giant pile of snow that needs to be moved as well. It seems like I've got to do 3 things just to get one thing done around here this time of year. My little German short-hair Ruby doesn't like it when I run the snowblower for some reason, and regularly she interrupts what I'm doing just to make sure I'm okay. And if you've been following along for the long haul, Ruby is now 3.5 years old. And as much as I love that little dog, she is likely the last bird dog I will ever own. Our little homestead is far from perfect, but the one thing I'm always trying to do is look for opportunities to improve. And believe it or not, this is not the place I intend on stacking all the hay that I'll need for the deer in the future. But this is going to be perfect for the deer for now. Again, Ruby's trying to let me know that she doesn't want me to run the snowblower and she'd rather go take a ride on the side-by-side. But I need to get access to the railroad ties I have over here so I can get that 1,000-gallon diesel tank set up where it's supposed to be. Every couple of weeks I try to come over here and fire up my Bobcat 435 excavator and make sure the battery's staying charged and it's staying running as it should. But excavators and ice can be dangerous. Okay, since I got this machine last summer, I've been looking for a new set of tracks. I still need a new set of tracks, but now I'm kind of glad that I didn't find them, because I'm going to take those tracks and I'm going to secure chains to them and see how much better it is having chains on the tracks versus just the rubber tracks. And because these tracks are old and I'm going to replace them at some point in time, I would not be opposed to having a winter set of tracks and a summer set of tracks. So I think this next week I'm going to pick up some chain and see how hard it is to put the chain on those tracks. And then I want to see how far I can get up the hill with the excavator. The ground is barely frozen right now, and I think if I could get the excavator up on the hill, I could start the process of cutting in the trail. The ground should be way more frozen than it is, but it isn't. And so I'm going to probably try and figure out how to work through this. The weather's supposed to be incredibly warm this next week, way warmer again than it should be. And I'm worried that we're not going to have much of a winter. This was my concern last year after having a 100-year storm or whatever that was that we went through last winter. After going through that, my concern that either this year or the year after was going to be a light winter. So far we got 3 feet of snow, but it's supposed to be 40 degrees next week. And in January, in this corner of the world, in southeastern Idaho, it should not be 40 degrees in January. So I'm going to put those chains on those tracks next week, and I'm going to try to figure out if I can get up there and start cutting in that trail. So, from up here at Red Poppy Ranch, from our family to yours, again, we just wanted to say thank you for checking in on us, and we will see you guys in a week.